Alright, so this is the gaming PC that we built a couple of weeks ago, and this was the PC with the Deepcool CC560 ARGB case and the GTX 970, as well as a 3rd gen i5, I believe, if I remember correctly. I think it also has 16 gigs of RAM, so it's just a little entry level these days, maybe bordering on mid-level gaming PC that we're just going to test out today and see how it does in modern games, yeah, just see how this PC will perform in some of our usual benchmarks, and see what kind of performance you can get with a cheaper PC like this one. I've been doing a lot of these videos lately, but I think it's good videos to do because a lot of people are buying second-hand parts and they are generally interested to see what value you can get from cards like the GTX 970, or when we did the 1650 or the 1070. So yeah, it's interesting for me to do these videos, and I think people like to see the performance of cards like these. This is of course the ARGB case where we can shuffle through the lighting, so I think this is a very good looking PC. It's very neat. I think I like the aesthetic. I think it came out really well, and yeah, I'm just loving the look of this one. So with that said, let's get into the benchmarking and let's see how this guy performs. Let's do it. Okay, getting into the Doom Eternal test. Let me tilt the screen a little bit more. In here we have the metrics. So unfortunately I couldn't get Afterburner working on this system. I'm not sure why, some sort of issue. So you know, the test that I usually do, they do have built-in metrics, so we'll just use those metrics for these tests today, and we won't have the normal overlay of Afterburner, which is usually there on the screen. But I'll just let you know what is happening. So unfortunately we won't be able to see how hard the PC is working, but apart from that we at least have access to the FPS, of course. So right now we are at about 100 FPS, but it's when we play it drops down to about 60, and this is running at high 1080p, no resolution scaling. It's around 80 now, but it does dip to the 50s, and usually it hovers around the 60s. So I think it's a pretty good result for such an old PC. If you consider this PC is about 10 years old at this point, I think it's a pretty good result. So with that said, now we are getting about 70 FPS. Now of course when we don't have all the metrics, I can't see how hot the PC is running or exactly how hard it's working, but these parts are quite a good match for each other, since we have a 3rd gen i5, which is a quad core, and a GTX 970, which is a 4 gig card. So this system is much like the 1650 system that we took a look at, I believe, in the previous video, with small differences, but they are very much the same. That one is a little bit newer and probably a little bit better, but you know, when you're working on a budget, this one isn't far behind, and this is still a very doable and relatable system for people that are working on a budget and perhaps don't have as much money for new technology as others do. But yeah, like I said, the performance is quite good. It's more than playable, and we are running at high. I don't think we'll be able to run this at ultra because of the memory size. I think you need at least a 6 gig card like a 1660 to run this game at ultra. But you know, in terms of visuals, this is running at 60 FPS and this is a 60 Hz screen, so for a budget setup this card is almost perfect because there isn't going to be any game that you can't play on it. And even games like newer games like God of War or Spider-Man, you know, if you can only run those games on medium at HD, it's still, you know, a very playable experience, and if you're getting around 60 frames doing it, you know, there's not much to complain about, I feel, because I think for the budget that is a pretty good result still. and I believe that's the sort of experience you can expect with a computer like this. I don't have those benchmarks, unfortunately, but for the ones that I do have, I do think we will reach the 60 mark for most of them at high graphics. So this is averaging about 60, going up and down from 60. At times it's like at 100, other times it's at a 50. So it's probably averaging about 70, but nonetheless, it's a very good result. Let's move on to the next test. Okay, getting into the Far Cry New Dawn benchmark, and this is of course one that I always love to do. This is running at 1080p high, and so far we are averaging 62 FPS. I know that's a little bit small for you to see on the camera, so I'm just going to let you know what it says. But yeah, the average is at around 65, and it is steadily going upwards. So this is running at a high, at ultra, and like I always say, this test is basically Far Cry 5 with a few enhancements, and there's always a little bit of a stutter here for some reason. But overall this is running really well. So what this means is that you could play a game like Far Cry 5 at high graphics, at HD, no resolution scaling, at around 70 average FPS, which is very impressive for a PC that only costs $250. And I think this is something to consider. This is a good PC if you just want to purely play games like this one. Okay, let's move on to the next one. Let's do it. Let's see the average. 64 FPS. Pretty good. Alright, getting into the Hitman benchmark, and this is running at HD Ultra graphics. So I pushed this one a little bit, and so far it's doing okay. Not too good, but not bad either. It's at around 55 FPS average now, but it is steadily rising and getting better. And yeah, it's actually getting a lot better. It's around 70 FPS average now. This is still a really good looking game, and this game is a little bit more CPU intensive, but this i5 in here is a very capable CPU. You know, for older games like this, I don't mean in today's standard, it's not exactly the newest CPU that's going to be able to run all the best games. For that I would recommend at least a 6-core CPU these days, probably something from like 8th gen and upwards. But you know, just for normal gaming, just sitting and gaming and playing games at high graphics on HD, this is really all you need if you think about it. I mean, I know games have gotten really fancy and demanding and everything, but if you're someone that just wants to game, what more do you need? This is going to get somewhere between an Xbox One and an Xbox Series S in terms of performance. And I mean, these visuals are amazing. It's really good looking. I know the camera that I have isn't the best, so it doesn't always capture everything. But you know, it's a good looking game, and I really feel in today's time there's so much value to be gotten from a system like this. I don't think you always need the newest and the best thing. I think that there's a lot of value in older parts and second-hand parts as well. This is averaging 70 FPS, so it's a really good result. Let's move on to the next one. Okay, getting into the Shadow of the Tomb Raider benchmark, and as you know, this is one that I've done many times. Starting out quite good. This is running at high graphics, the high preset, at HD of course, and yeah, it's a beautiful game. Everything looks really good, and so far we haven't dipped below 60, which is really good to see. And it's a pretty good result so far. We are around 55 now, so a little bit below 60, but even still, I think it's a pretty good result. And this is one of the most difficult scenes in the whole test, so it's a good omen for what the performance will be for the rest of the test. Yeah, in the jungle scene we are getting around 60 to 70. And yeah, another good looking scene. This is again running on high, and I just feel like this is fantastic performance from a PC that costs around $250. You'll be very hard pressed to find this kind of performance on a console that costs the same. Now I don't know what a Series S costs in the US, but I assume it's a little bit more than $250. And with that said, I don't actually know what they cost, but I imagine it is probably around perhaps $300 or so. And so, it does probably make sense to spend a little bit more on a system that is DDR4 based and does have a 6-core CPU. I'm not saying this is better than a Series S. I'm just saying in terms of raw FPS numbers, this is holding up quite well. So if you're someone that's just looking for gaming, at a stretch you could build a system like this. If you didn't buy a new case and you got some parts a little bit cheaper, you could build a system like this for $200. And at that price you'll be hard pressed, even at a, let's say, $350 price for a Series S, you'll be hard pressed to find something that performs like this, because this hasn't even gone into the 40s at all, and this is running at the high preset at HD. So fantastic result in this one, and I'm extremely happy with how the PC performs, to be honest. It is better than what I had expected, and I think it's a fantastic result. So with that said, let's move on and talk about the results a little bit more. Let's do it. Okay, so there you have it for the $250 system with the GTX 970, the Core i5 third gen CPU, 16 gigs of DDR3 RAM, and overall a really good system for the price. I think the system has a 1 terabyte hard drive and a small SSD in it as well, and this case is of course brand new. And as I was saying in the Tomb Raider benchmark, if you find a case like this or something smaller, because these parts aren't the biggest, that you could get for maybe around $40, you can even buy new cases for that, maybe even less. Like let's say you get a case that comes with a power supply for $30, then that's going to drop the price of this whole system by about to about $200. So if you build something like this for $200, and you consider a Series S costs around $350, is it worth it to go the extra $150, almost twice the amount that this cost, for the potential upgrades that a Series S offers? Things like I believe NVMe speed for the drives in the Series S, and of course it doesn't have hard drives, it only has the SSDs. I think it's a 512, and then of course the 6-core CPU that it has. I think it has 12 gigs of RAM, or does it have 16? But the RAM is faster because it's DDR4. And the graphics card equivalent is probably a little bit better than this. It's probably something like a 1660. I don't actually know. That's just if I had to wager a guess. But the thing about a computer is, you bought this for $250 and just look at it. I mean, it's so satisfying to build, and it's so good to look at. It's like sometimes I'll sit at my PC when I'm working or gaming, and I'll just like veer off to the side and just look at it and just be like, wow, that is cool. Like, I don't know, I don't feel like you would get that from a console. I don't own a console, so I own a PlayStation 2, but I don't think that counts. I just feel like this is sort of like your thing, like you built it, it's yours, and you're the one that sort of decides how it looks, and you can sort of make it like a mantelpiece, place it somewhere, and be proud of what you've built. And for a case like this, if you're willing to pay a bit extra, you have features like this where you can show off your lighting, and you can add RGB strips to it if you want to, and colorful graphics cards and keyboards with RGB. And I know that these kinds of lighting options and that kind of thing isn't for everyone, and that's okay. It can still look amazing without the lighting as well. You don't need that to make an amazing looking PC. For some people, building a sleeper PC is sort of like their thing. It's like a thrill for them, and I kind of get that as well. There is something cool to that. But yeah, the point that I'm making is just PCs are so customizable. You can really make it your own. And maybe for some people that's not a strong enough point to pull them towards purchasing a PC instead of a console, but for some people it is. So with that said, I'm extremely happy with how this performed. I think it did really well for the price. Playing modern AAA games at 60 FPS for $250 is really good, and it's something that I would recommend to anyone wanting to get into PC gaming that doesn't have a lot of cash to give upfront. This is a good way to get started, and the thing about starting with a case like this is, let's say down the line you want to upgrade your motherboard and CPU and RAM. You're not going to have to upgrade your case, because this case is going to look amazing a couple of years down the line as well. You want to upgrade your graphics card, well, this case supports big graphics cards. So yeah, I think there's value to starting out with a good case as well. But regardless, this PC did exceptionally well. I'm pretty happy with it, and if you're someone that is trying to get into gaming at budget prices, something like this will do you just fine. So recommend it, and I'm really happy with it. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it and got some value out of it, and I hope you agree with what I said. There's nothing wrong with being a console lover. They do offer extremely accessible value in terms of just playing games, no frills, which I also understand is a draw point for a lot of people, but for some of us this is what we want. So with that said, thanks for watching. Hope to see you in the next one, and hope you enjoyed the video. Stay with me.